All right, ladies and gentlemen. So when we want to understand the law, it's important for us to understand how the law is classified. And so in today's video, I'll be describing the classification of law that's adopted in Australia. And then I'll be talking about various law jurisdictions that are found in different places around the world. Let's start with law classification. How is law classified? There's a number of ways in which you can classify law. Now, as you can see in the slides in front of you, the first way is based on source. And what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, you had a law that came because of a certain legislation. Um, so, a legislation that's been enacted by Parliament versus law that we get from decisions made by judges, right? And specifically in Australia, because we adopt the common law system, these are two important sources of law. Um, the second type or the second way we can classify law is based on subject area. So you have certain laws that are um, related to, let's say, for instance, criminal conduct, so criminal law versus civil law. So these two are different areas, and that's why it's important to um, understand where the law actually falls, in which area does the law fall into. And the third type of classification is where we look at the nature of the relationship between the parties involved. So if we've got a dispute somehow, or if we have an issue, what we could do is we could understand the parties that are involved and the nature of the relationship between these two parties or between one party and um, another group. And based on that interpretation of the relationship, we can classify the applicable laws to that situation. Okay, so that was the classification of laws. What about the types of law that are present? Well, there's various people have tried to classify law in different ways or in different types. For the purposes of simplifying matters, I'll just present this very simple division, which is private versus public law. So let's first look at public law. What is public law? Public law concerns any issues that impact the public or state. So if there's an individual and they have an issue with the state, you'd classify, their issue as, public law, a related issue. Um, Issues between governments. So if you've got the state of New South Wales versus the state of Victoria, an issue between these two states, that would also come under public law. In terms of public law, there's various areas in the law. So we have administrative law, and that's basically a law that governs government agencies. We also have constitutional law, and it's based on how to interpret and apply the Constitution of Australia. Criminal law is a public law, and international law, so law that governs the relations between Australia and other nations that are around the world. Okay, in terms of private law, so our second type, we have um, it's private law. It concerns matters that apply to relationships between individuals in a legal system. And you can see in front of you on the slides, I have three main areas, and these are three areas that we're going to be focusing on in our course. So we've got tort law, contract law, and property law. I'll explain what each one is very briefly. So tort law is law that governs civil wrongs. Contract law is law that covers the obligations between parties, and property law is a law that defines the interests that people have in things. So we're going to be diving very deep into each of these areas later on in the course, but these are three important areas of law. A lot of issues that arise in different industries. If you look at them, these issues would be classified in one of these law areas. The final classification of law is civil versus criminal. And that's another classification that a lot of people adopt. So instead of private versus public, we have the civil versus criminal classification of law. Now, civil law is law that concerns compensation. So if you've got issues that arise because if, parties claiming some sort of compensation or wanting some sort of payment, then that would be classified under civil law. However, if there are laws where punishment is deserved, so where it's punitive in nature, then criminal law is where we look at. Now, the difference between these two classifications, civil and criminal law, is evident when we look at the burden of proof. So, in civil law, in civil law cases, the burden of proof lies on the plaintiff, so the person that initiates the legal proceeding, um, or the person that starts the legal case. um, they have the burden of proof, so they have to prove beyond on the balance of probabilities that the defendant was guilty. If you look at criminal law, the burden of proof lies on the Crown, and the Crown has to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the other party was guilty. Okay, so that's what we refer to as burden of proof. Um, the legal systems that are adopted worldwide, various legal systems. In Australia, we adopt the common law legal system. What's the definition of a legal system? A legal system is basically the legal rules and framework of institutions within which the law operates in a state. So in Australia, common law is what we adopt. Um, there are other countries that have the civil legal system. Many countries in Europe, for instance. There's also, and it's applicable to Australia over here, indigenous law. So customary, that would be classified as a customary legal system. And then we've got some countries that adopt Sharia law, which is Islamic law. So these are the common legal systems that you find worldwide. For the purposes of this course, we'll be sticking to common law because that's what's applicable to Australia. And finally, here's a list of references. I do suggest that you guys go through these links. Thanks.